like to welcome to the podcast today, Kyle Matthews.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Kyle Matthews is the Chief Connecting Officer with Crankset Group. How long have you been doing that?
It's been over 5 years now.
Holy cow.
Time flies.
That's how you became the Kevin Bacon of Denver.
We're really making this a thing.
We are.
Okay.
He has the enviable job of meeting great business owners in all industries on a daily basis, and has the unique ability to meet business owners where they're at, learn more about their goals, and offer solutions ranging from business advisory to a quality connection. Well, yeah, connections. Right, Kevin Bacon.
That's how we roll.
Right. He loves teaming up with others to be a force for awesome in the Denver area. I love your bio. That was great. So tell me a little bit about the Crankset Group.
Perfect.
And then I want to dive into your past and then how you got here.
All right. Sounds like fun. Again, thanks for having me, Jamie. Excited to be on your podcast. I'm a big fan, for those folks listening, big fan of Jamie and what she does. And so I guess just to give you this overview, the 60,000 foot is we help business owners, period. Right. And so this parent company, the Crankset Group, we really help in the participation age, what we call the emerging work world.
Right.
And so think about leaving those old ideas from the industrial age, right? Like the employee, and moving into this participation age of stakeholders and people, bringing their whole brains to work. And by doing that, impacting the bottom line in a positive way. So the changeover from managers to leaders, results-based pay, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the some overarching ideas of what we believe about work. And then we've got really my focus. I'm a part owner on the 3 to 5 club side of the business. So think more service-based businesses, typically anywhere from 1 to 10 stakeholders, what we call employees or team members or staff. And then typically you're looking at a revenue range up to, call it 2 to 5 mil. And it can go beyond that, but that's the meat and potatoes. And so what we do for our bread and butter, as you, of course, know very well, is a 3 to 5 club. And so, I guess the basic overview, just so folks really fully understand, that is think of a high-level mastermind group on steroids.
Totally.
And so you've got 10 to 24 small business owners, and they're coming together 2 times a month for 2 hours at a clip to work on this key content. We say it's the simple but hard things that it takes to build a mature business.
It's so hard, and it's intensive. Absolutely.
And so that's like the big thing there is there's so many programs out there that help you make more money.
Right.
Okay? Well, fantastic. But then again, I don't care if you're pulling down $60K a month, if you have a built-in divorce, you can't travel, you can't do things that are significant to you.
You're a slave to your business.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so we want business owners to get both time and money from their business. And so when you look at the equation, we're talking about T plus M equals S. Time plus money equals significance. What's significant to you?
Right.
And so now you've got this committed community, because even though your quotients for time and money may look very different from mine, and even those things that are significant to us, those can vary greatly. However, we're in the same boat. We're running towards this thing we call a BMD, a business maturity date, with everything that we've got. And we're going to do anything that we can to help those people in the room to reach that.
Right.
And that's that point where we get that minimal amount of both time and money.
Right.
And so that's not the finish line, but we can't go on if we don't have that proper foundation.
Right.
And so it's, that's what I'm all about. Yeah. If you can't tell, I get jazzed about this stuff.
Well, obviously.
And it's not it's not
networking.
It's not a thing. It's not a short term. No, these are the keys to freedom.
Right.
And truly, I've seen lives changed.
Right. And that's what's
exciting.
We see it all the time.
Yeah.
We see our members hit BMD all the time.
Absolutely.
So I'm a member of one of the 3 to 5 clubs.
Actually,
we're the same.
We're in the same. So practice what we preach, right? I'm in a home 3 to 5 club, and Jamie happens to be in that club, which is fantastic.
Right.
I'm trying to think. She might have been a tough sell. But then once we got her in, it was off to the races.
Well, that's how I am. I have to gather all the data, and then I will make a decision. It has to be enough data. Sometimes
Absolutely.
that's like this much data. Sometimes that's like this much data.
Yeah.
But I was looking for a club that was the right fit culturally and personality-wise, because I had just come from a BNI group, which I watched bury some businesses.
Yes.
That was really interesting.
As far as networking goes, because I think it's worth making this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a time when I moved out here, I didn't know anyone.
Right.
I had to network.
Right.
And so networking is in and of itself, it's not a bad thing.
No, absolutely not.
But there's a reason why it feels icky a lot of times with the wrong group. You can't be doing this for 30 years. That is in and of itself a treadmill. So that's why we say stop it.
Right.
Stop networking, build a mature network. And that's the fun part, because now my business, I get to work with people that I enjoy doing life with.
Right.
And
hanging out
that's
with.
a blast.
Yeah. And what I love about 3 to 5 is we are a community.
Yes.
And many of us are really good friends.
Absolutely.
And we really are pushing each other forward a lot of the time, which is awesome. And we've done a lot of things within our group.
Absolutely.
As leaders too.
Absolutely. Well, being the Intentionals 3 to 5 club, all of our 3 to 5 clubs have names. So we're in the Intentionals 3 to 5 club. So it would only be right that we would intentionally go after these things.
Right. Intentionally push everybody.
Absolutely.
As much as they would have let us.
It's true. It's true.
All right. So I have some questions for you.
Bring it on.
Are you ready? What was your first job?
Okay. So my first job was at a place called Acme Markets. Everybody's on the East Coast has probably heard of it, but out here maybe not. You know, it'd be like your Safeway or your King Soopers. I think Albertsons owned them. But your grocery store, it was actually a union shop, which was pretty wild. I got to learn a lot about that. But that summer that I got hired, I was 14. I had to get like these special working papers to go in, and I was one of very few of my friends that started to work that early. Mm-hmm. I grew 6 inches that summer. And I'm not that tall. So it was wild. I was actually, I started pushing carts, and I was just bent over pushing these carts, praying that no one would walk in front of me so I could get the momentum to get them up into the cart holding area. And so I did that. I got what else did I do there? I was a cashier. I did stocking, frozen foods, basically every single place in the grocery, which is funny because looking back, my mother always wanted me to be a waiter for the life experience, like as an early job.
Extremely important.
Absolutely. And so the fun part about it is looking back, she said, you got all those skills because you jumped around and were able to do that.
Right. And it's that customer service skill.
Yeah.
Or that like the serving others skill.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I waited tables for years upon years.
You learned so much.
Right, from country clubs to, on the borders.
Yes.
On the border was my first.
I didn't do so hot in food service.
I bussed tables when I was 16.
That wasn't my thing. I had a short stint in food service. And, I decided cars were a better way to go for me personally.
So what did you want to be when you grew up?
Early on, it was definitely a firefighter, for sure. I was a volunteer for years and years.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yep. And then later on, when I had my internship on the other side of the state, I took EVOC, Emergency Vehicle Operations Certification.
Truck driving.
And for a little bit, I drove. So for a couple times, I actually got to drive a lot more senior guys. So I didn't get a lot of seat time, but I drove a fire truck through the alleys of Pittsburgh, which that'll get you going.
Right.
I mean, you've got
it's adrenaline
inches
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I was fully PAC 1 certified, so full SCBA and go in and get it done. I
Do
saw
you
some
volunteer
pretty gnarly
here?
stuff. I don't, because most stations here are not volunteer.
That's
Most are
true.
paid, and so it's a
Some
a
actual
career
job. It's a full-time
choice.
situation.
Yeah.
I think they work 3 days shifts, 4 days.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but most of it's shift. Yeah.
Not in this part of Colorado. There's lots of volunteer fire.
Absolutely, yeah. But most of the
stuff.
metro locations are paid staff.
What was your least favorite job?
Probably the food service. Yeah, I did essentially I was a busboy at an Italian restaurant, and it was just awful.
Right?
It was just awful. The never ending,
it's gross,
the hierarchies.
People are not nice to you.
Yeah, it wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And I quickly made a transition away from that.
Yeah, I bussed tables for just a little bit. I could not handle people being mean to me about not getting their tables. Yeah. I was like, look.
Well, I guess for me there was no variety.
Right?
I was basically making laps. Right. And I was like, this is.
I know. So like the minute I turned 18, I was like, can I serve tables now? Like, yes. I do not want to bus anymore.
Yes.
Give me my own sections. This I can handle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me be my own boss of my own little space.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can handle it.
I think that I've had a few other jobs along the line that have caused some good brain damage. However, I will say one of my early, I don't know if you call it a mantra, or one of the things that I figured out was that I'm going to learn everything that I can in each progressive job that I have.
Right.
And once I can't learn anything else, I'm going to move to the next.
Right. Because there's more to learn.
And it was I think that philosophy served me well over the years, big time.
Yeah, I've worked in firms where, the other like CPAs didn't know how to assemble tax returns or print postage or do the things that, the admins typically do.
Right.
But then I would hop in and learn how to do those things, right? Mm-hmm. And so, what happens when those people are gone? Stuff has to happen.
Yes.
And so learning the business like from the admin, because I'm just not too good, I guess.
I don't know about that. But I think here's what I get out of that. When you understand a position from all aspects, you're able to do your specific role at a higher level.
I think that's very true, because you understand what's happening on the other side of it a lot of the time.
I would agree.
That was back in the day we printed tax returns.
Wow. See?
Back in the day.
I don't even know, because I did learn how to do my own taxes. And it was painful. And I'm, as you know quite well, I'm not a detail-oriented person. And so, as a business owner, I understand the need and the necessity to understand the basics. Mm-hmm. However, as soon as I did that, I got it off my plate.
Right. I know. I'm always flabbergasted by the people who are willing to slog through their own tax returns.
No. There are other people. Right, I don't know who, but
there's some of us out there that
there's some people that kind of enjoy this stuff. And
I know.
More power to them.
Nick tried to do our tax return. My husband tried to do our tax return one year. He's like, I just feel like I should understand how this works. The mechanical engineer. He's like, it doesn't make logical sense. And I'm like, it's tax law.
Yes.
Built on, the laws built on special interests. It's not supposed to make sense.
I would say for once, I agree with an engineer. And I was perplexed. And whenever you try to understand something that a bureaucracy has created...
Right, there's no rationalizing.
It will cause brain damage.
Right? No. There's no rationalizing.
No.
And then I'm slogging through the new tax law. And it did not simplify absolutely anything, especially for business owners.
Of course.
Right? And so I'm just like, Thanks.
Well, and usually, you know, and then I certainly won't throw stones, but as a generalization, I feel like small business owners, we get pushed to the back of the line when it comes to things to simplify our lives, which is ironic given the snapshot of the economy and what we bring to the table.
Right.
But
well, we're the least loud voices, I think, because we're too busy doing other stuff.
you bring up an interesting point.
So I know, I mean, so each industry has its own lobby, like own, you know, associations and things that do lobby. I mean, accountants, there's like 5 or 6 of them, even, that are lobbying, you know, lobbying the government for, you know, clarity on this, clarity on that, you know, not screwing us in new tax laws, right?
Yeah.
But there's not every industry has that. So like the new tax law, there's different service industries that won't be able to take certain deductions.
Really?
And so engineers are usually included in that, but they got excluded this time.
Oh, that's not fun.
Because their lobby did their job.
Okay. Okay.
Right? So they have a big enough lobby.
Right.
To influence how the tax laws came down.
Which is interesting because I believe that, when you look at, I guess you could call it a lack of unification across having like one voice that is amplified enough to enact change.
Right. So like the plumbers, I don't know if they have a voice. You know, just all there's so many different industries.
Right. Well, and then you look at what's supposed to happen, right? SPDC is supposed to have our concerns and take them in, but they've actually defined a small business in a way that isn't accurate.
Oh no.
Their definition of a small business, I think it's like 6 million. Don't quote me on it. I have to look at the latest what those numbers are, but it's actually a large business, and they would call, you know, most of the business, I would say, in the 3 to 5 club, they would actually, what I consider a demeaning term, they call it a micro business. You're a micro business. Well,
I feel like micro time, man.
It's small business, and so I think that as far as enacting real change, the definitions would have to cover actual small businesses before we would see some of those changes.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, it's not supposed to, like, tax code doesn't make sense. There's no logic. We don't apply logic.
That's why we need people like you.
We just apply the knowledge we have to help everybody we can. So you're always wearing a suit and tie.
Usually.
Where did that come from? And like, is that something ingrained in like what you were taught when you were little, or?
You know, that's a great question. It's something that's come up recently.
Do you have to dress for the job you want?
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. I think people discount looks, and it's funny because I think this is like the most informal I've been in a long time.
Right,
and,
you're not wearing a jacket.
I'm in Colorado. I'm growing a nice beard for the mountains, and it's fun because the culture here in the state is definitely more casual, and I think that you need to be sensitive. If I was visiting a client that is it's got some front office and then the back is all industrial space, I'm not gonna show up in a full suit. I might do a button down or whatever it is and no tie. But here's what it comes down to, at least for me. One, it's look good, feel good.
Right.
Okay. And so
whatever that means. But then the other thing is, realistically, okay, right, wrong, indifferent, you're gonna get judged in that in a first impression. And so I want to show up as my best self. Right.
And then when people get to know me, I want a polished look to then be reflected in the rest of the way that I move through the world, my character, the way that I follow through, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But I'm going to set that stage early.
I
And
love
so, that's just something I've always done.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I feel like if you're going to do something,
Be all in.
be the best you can,
No,
right?
I totally agree.
Don't show up. I mean, I think we've seen, right? Here's the thing. I've seen people show up in a shirt and tie, and they look slovenly. Your shirt doesn't fit. Your tie's not right.
I saw a guy yesterday in like suit pants that were like obviously too long for him, and they were like tucked under. And I'm like, why even bother?
Right. So my thing is, again, show up in a way that's going to help you move through the world confidently, as you should.
It has to feel authentic too.
Absolutely. And I guess the other thing is, I'd rather have someone in a sharp, well-fitting button-down and some really nice jeans, belt buckle matches the shoes, etc., than going all out but not doing it properly.
I feel like I need to visit your closet.
I have quite the tie collection. That is
it's lined up.
It's not what I would like it to be, but I will say that my ties are color coordinated. Yeah, haven't gotten around to the shirts, but again, it's the details, right? I got to capture at least something.
So, where did you find your passion for helping business owners?
Yeah, I don't know how far back you want me to go, but just the speed through. I started my own business at 15, and so I learned my first lesson on cash flows when I was like 16 or 17. I secured I was doing high-end automotive detailing, and so I had a team of 5 guys. And it helped me pay for school. It was fantastic. I learned so much. And for part of the time, I had part of my crew working on the high-end automobiles with a focus on paint correction. And then the other team would do some fleet vehicles, some fleet work.
That's awesome.
I secured a contract over the years with a large HVAC company. And where was I going with that? I was just thinking about all the HVAC stuff. It takes me back. It takes me back, And so that's what it was. I had the work through the fleet where essentially I was brought on as W-2 to simplify their finances, and yet I had a strong immediately, like, it was all about my team. I want to take care of them, and so I paid them pretty much on a weekly basis, sometimes on a job by job basis. And so I'm paying these guys, and I know I have the money because I know I had my spreadsheet and I figured it all out, but my bank account didn't reflect that. I was like, why can't I pay these guys? I know I'm bringing enough in. And that's what it was. I was like, oh, well, I get paid here, every month, and I am paying my guys. Oh, so there were certain lessons that I learned, and there were some things that I learned, and there were some things that, had I known then what I know now, who knows? Maybe I would have a detailing empire on the East Coast. But it all happened as it was meant to. But certain things like relinquishing control and letting others fail, and seeing what that would do, and it definitely had. I wanted to be in control of the situation, not from a bad place, but it didn't help me to really grow, because I would have to have my fingers in every single piece, and so
which we see with this pretty much all business owners.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I saw the freedom that could be attained by a business that was run properly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I learned equal amounts from both business owners that were succeeding wildly,
right,
and business owners that were failing.
mm-hmm.
Whether their books showed it or not, there are a lot of businesses that were thriving, but I looked at the owner,
right,
and they didn't have a life.
Right.
They didn't have a life.
And that is the hardest, and you and I both deal with this, is to push people to get stuff off their plate.
Absolutely.
Highest and best. I see business owners all the time who are fingers in on,
Yep.
even just fingers in on the counting. Like, why is that necessary?
Mm-hmm.
You have a whole staff of like 20 people at this point.
Yep.
It's time to hand it over.
Absolutely.
And it's hard for people to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I always tell my business owners a lot of the time, I said, I know that society has told you as a business owner, you're supposed to know how to do bookkeeping. Like, this is something you're supposed to handle yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like the QuickBooks mantra. I don't know why business owners believe this. Right.
Well, there's so many, right? Like, let's look at things that if you polled 100 people,
mm-hmm.
these would be things that people would say about small business owners, or what they believe to be true.
Right.
They got to work 80 or 90 hours a week.
But it's whatever hours you want.
Well, that's a whole different can of worms, right? But there are all these things that we, are believe. Oh, well, no one's going to be as committed as the owner. Right. We talk about it all the time. Bad case of the nobodies. Nobody's as smart. Nobody's as motivated. And the fact is, it's just not true. In fact, if you look, it's actually the stuff that's in our heads as business owners that actually is what plays out.
Right.
So if you got a messy business, it's time to clean house.
Right.
What are those mindsets? And so that's actually some of the primitive stuff that as we break into business, we need to understand and ask ourselves these simple questions. What do we believe about business?
Mm-hmm.
What do we believe about people? Because those answers are going to influence what happens in our business. Because if we believe that no one else is smart and motivated, guess what? Mm-hmm. You're right.
Right.
But if you believe that those individuals are out there that want to make a difference, that want to come in and support the mission, vision, values, and you support them,
mm-hmm.
it's going to happen.
Right.
I really like what Chuck says about this. He's the founder of 3 to 5 Club, incredible visionary. And I don't know if we can do this, but definitely required reading, Making Money is Killing Your Business. For any business owner, it's going to speak right to your soul.
It's right there.
There it is on the bookshelf. And so that, the whole idea of engagement.
Right.
And so here's how Chuck likes to explain it. When people show up at our organizations, mm-hmm. we can't what's that buzzword? Empower them.
Right.
Okay?
You can't empower
because that says
people.
that I am the top dog and I'm going to peel off some of my power and give it to you. Okay, right? That feels a little icky, right?
Icky.
But it's such a buzzword. Engagement. So someone shows up. When they show up, they are fully acorn. So as a leader, mm-hmm. as an owner, we have a choice. We either water them, give them what they need to succeed, mm-hmm. encouragement, clear guidelines around the results that we should be hitting, et cetera, or we can cover them up with a tarp and keep them in the dark, right? It's that engagement piece. Mm-hmm. And so that is not allowed to even happen if we don't believe that people are smart and motivated, or what we like to say, which we got from Ricardo Semco, is trust in adult behavior.
Right. People run their own lives
and require that people come in and they participate and they make decisions.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you talk to a lot of business owners on a weekly
lot of
basis.
business owners.
Your job is to have coffees with lots and lots of people.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
I do a lot with the leadership of local 3 to 5 clubs. And then, of course, on a larger scale, I'm looking for those rock star individuals that can start their own high-level mastermind groups. There are 3 to 5 clubs across the U.S. and around the world. But on a local level, most of what I do is meeting with small business owners. And the beautiful thing about what I get to do is I get to meet them where they're at, not where I'd like them to be.
Right.
And then I get to see what I can do to push them forward, either personally and or professionally.
If they're ready, a lot of the time.
Hey, that's actually a thing. And some people, I like to say, they have not come to the end of themselves yet. And I meet people all the time that they're hard charging. I can just do this on my own. Well, fantastic. Let's do some long-term thinking.
Right.
Because guess what? You're going to get tired. Or, I see you're living that single life, but when you actually want to spend time with that special someone that you meet, you're going to have a different story. So maybe if you get those things figured out now, then you'll have the time to invest in that person or that interest or that, charity or that, whatever it is.
So we were actually talking yesterday, and you were saying something about, what business owners actually want. And there seems to be a theme around what you find there. So what is that?
What they want. Well, I think we talk about that significance a lot. Mm-hmm. And that significance for a lot of business owners, believe it or not, it's not greed, it's not more, it's other focused.
Other pursuits.
Other pursuits, but it's altruistic in nature.
Right.
And so what I tend to see, and this definitely gets me going, small business owners that I've met, I would say 98+%, they have a genuine desire to give back either locally or globally with their time and or money resources. And so that excites me because if they have a business that's not throwing off time and money in amounts that are greater than what's required for living, right? Past Maslow's hierarchy and all that good stuff. If they don't have that, it's just a wish. But if they're able to build a business that throws off that time, that money, and now they're able to live in that significant manner where they're able to do that, I think it's a wildfire that's waiting to get started. And that's
crazy. I love
exciting.
That there's, since you've been here for 5 years, being Kevin Bacon. So
you might need to explain that because I didn't know until you explained that to me because I'm not a big Hollywood guy.
I'm not sure for sure, but so it's called 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Okay.
And I think the premise is that everybody in Hollywood is 7 people away from doing a movie with Kevin Bacon.
Got it.
So an acquaintance of ours, Miss Christy Barber, who's going to be on the podcast.
Excellent.
In a few weeks.
Good people.
She's awesome people. She's also another accountant with a personality.
Yes.
We are rare breed, and there's another one of me out there.
Absolutely.
She was saying that, 7 degrees of Kyle Matthews. And so we've been laughing about that for the last few days.
Too much fun.
So we're just going to start calling you the Kevin Bacon of Denver.
I guess there are worse things to be called.
I know, because everybody's met you.
Let's see.
Everybody
call me anything you want, but don't call me late for dinner.
There you go.
It's an old school one there for you guys. But
all right. So just last question. What do you see as the biggest obstacle for business owners to get off the treadmill?
Right here.
Head trash.
Right here. It's mindset. It's mindset. And I think that knowing that it's a constant challenge
definitely
is part of the equation. I think, as I alluded to earlier, having that committed community around you
to call you out,
to call you out on your stories, right? Hey, here's what you're telling me, right? Hey, you say you're all about your family, but I see you returning my emails at 10 o'clock at night. Like, hey, is this congruent?
Right.
Right, and that's powerful. But I really like what our facilitator John Heenan says in Ireland. You've got this emotional roller coaster, and it starts out with a great idea. It's a great idea,
Up and down,
right? Whether it's a business idea or even if it's just in life. All right, I'm gonna lose some weight. This is a great idea, right? And then it becomes
it's all chicken and rice.
And then it becomes right. And then it becomes tougher.
Right.
Nobody's returning my calls. I thought this would be easier, right? And so you really find yourself in this place that says, how do I get out of here?
Right.
Right? The 9 to 5 starts looking a little bit more glittery than it should, right? And then finally, and this I would say happens more in community than it does if we're doing that John Wayne rugged individualist thing, we recommit. And when we recommit, what are we willing to die for to make this get across the line? When we recommit, all of a sudden it's a great idea again.
And we do this many times a day even.
Absolutely.
I know,
Absolutely. And so realizing that fact as we interact with each other and meeting people where they're at, that's what's really powerful, because it's going to break through the mindset stuff. And obviously there's a whole breadth of different whether you want to call it limiting beliefs or hang-ups or head trash or whatever it is, there's so many things that we can do to push past that. And I would say most of that lives in an authentic and transparent, committed community.
Awesome.
Because that's where that stuff's going to get out. That's where it's going to get challenged. And that's what's going to help us push through and endure so that we can recommit and get a good idea, get back to that good idea again.
My daily good idea, and then despondence, and then good idea,
right,
and then despondence.
Right. It's a roller coaster.
It is a total roller coaster,
and we can't do it alone.
For every business owner,
absolutely.
No, we can't do it alone. And the people that I see that require of themselves that they do it alone, it's just not pretty.
No, it's not. I say come into the light.
Yeah, come into the fold with the rest of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and awesome. So it's just one of those things that you see time and time again. And I'll even address this briefly. I believe that people are either afraid to invest in themselves, or maybe they think they're not worth it, or maybe they think they can do it. I don't know what it is, but look around in the other areas of your life, right? What you water is going to grow.
That's very true.
And if you want self-improvement, which obviously your business comes out of who you are,
right? You
need to make that investment,
right?
And so when you look at reframing things, some people think that whether it be courses for business or masterminds. As a small business owner, and I get it, those things like those plane tickets to the conferences or this or that, I'm not saying they're all the best play, but those things feel like expenses,
right? Because
it's money that's coming out of your pocket. But if you have that long-term thinking, then you can reframe that and say, no, this is an investment.
And it's either an investment in the business, and it might bring something tangible, or it brings some kind of personal development.
Absolutely.
And I think, not seeing that personal development piece. At this point, I've been 3 to 5, 2 years now? And I have all these tools and all these pieces and all these things, and my revenue is pretty much the same. But I'm not the same person.
Correct. And then I would say that you're going to get different things out, too, because if your focus is on getting time from your business, you can always get the money.
Right.
But if the focus is on the money, it's so tough
to get the time
to go the other way around and get that time resource from your business. Right.
And I've even been on that roller coaster where all of a sudden I had time but no money. And then we went back this way.
Well, and again, it's the long-term play, because people, and I've seen this too as a sad trend. People get the content, they get the bump up, they get the change, and then they're out. Well, what do you expect? Like, you don't have a drip system, right? It's like a poorly planned out diet. You're gonna rebound,
right?
Unless you have that continued support that what's next, what's next to get you towards that definite goal, because we ask ourselves this terrible question,
Right.
and it's the giant how.
Right.
And it's awful because it's too big.
It is too big.
You need to know where you're going. You need to have a sane assessment of where you're at. But how you get there is going to be that 2.1 planning principle.
Right.
What's
and
next?
it's going to be an up and down.
Yes.
I like how Chuck always does the graph that just goes.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. Well, it's you know, you look at the analogy of a stream.
Right.
People say, what does a stream do? Well, it meanders. Well, no. That stream is relentlessly committed
It has a goal
to reaching the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't get excited about, what am I doing? Where am I going? If it hits a dam, it's going to either blow it up, go over it, go under it, right? It's going to go right, it's going to go left. But at the end of the day, it's going to reach the ocean. And so we need to kind of take that emotion out and really figure out, okay, well, that didn't work. I'm going to do this. That didn't work. I'm going to do this. Right. But be relentless, right? And gets back to that recommitment. What am I willing to die for? Because if we dip our toe in the water, we're not really committed. And that shows.
Right.
That absolutely shows.
The biggest obstacle, along with mindset, is commitment.
I would say if trying to do that alone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. So last question. What is your favorite business book?
Oh man, that's a brutal question. Just for all the listeners out there, I do a fair amount of reading, and when I say reading, I don't mean reading. I love audiobooks. Yeah. I probably consume about 98% of my content through audiobooks, and it's really helped me because I realize that when I'm ingesting new contents, new ideas, new thoughts, even if I don't agree with them, I'm growing and my mind is wrestling with those things, and then I can take those out to my peers and we can talk, and that's really how you grow. And so I would say that outside of Chuck's books, obviously, the one that really stood out for me was my business book of the year in 2017 was Extreme Ownership by two Navy SEALs, Leif Babin and Jocko Willink.
I have to put this on my list.
And I really enjoyed how they broke down even just the formula.
Right.
Their formula was war story, right? This is a scenario of what happened. Principle. Application to business. Relevant story, principle, application to business. And what it enables us to do, and what it did for me, there are a lot of different concrete principles that I could take out and use, but even just the idea of the overarching extreme ownership, it helps us level up because it says, well, did this stakeholder really fail? Or did I not properly equip them?
I love it.
And so it puts that lens back on us, and it doesn't say that, we have to take all the blame, this, that, and the other, but it raises our standards. And when you have an entire organization, right, not to get super deep, but look around at the culture.
Right.
People want to pass the buck. If you have an organization where people take ownership of what they do,
where it's required to take
for the failures and the successes,
and failure's fine.
Absolutely, but clean it up. Clean up your mess, right? It's okay.
I used to tell
clean up your mess.
when I trained tax associates. I'd always be like, you can't break it. You can just delete it,
right?
And then you have to redo it. Like, that's fine. It's cool. All good.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I would say that one continues to stand out.
It's on my list now.
For me.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. It's a bunch of fun, and I'm excited that you're doing a podcast because I think what you bring to the table is a skill set that is so rare, and as business owners, we just need someone to bring that side of the business, so that as business owners that are more potentially market focused,
Right.
we can have the numbers that aren't just the numbers, but the numbers that actually can inform better decisions.
Right.
And so I'm excited about that. So
it's what we love to do. We
Excellent.
love to push people forward through their numbers.
there you go. That's what it's all about.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Hey, y'all. Thanks for listening. If you found this podcast to be inspiring, helpful, and entertaining, please like and subscribe. This helps us grow the community and reach more people. If you are interested in learning more about this episode's guest or accessing any of the books or other resources mentioned in this episode, be sure to check out the description box below. Until next time, be abundant.